Hey, is a sleeping pad a necessity or a luxury? I'm going to explore that question in this video and offer some suggestions for how to decide on the right pad for you. Hey guys, I'm Dan, and these videos are all about helping you to transition to ultralight backpacking. Before we get into talking about sleeping pads though, I want to just take a moment to say thanks so much to the folks who have subscribed to the channel already. With your help, we've been able to pass the first big milestone of having 100 subscribers. So woohoo! Thanks for that. This growth really is both thrilling and encouraging for me to keep making these videos. So all I can say is you folks are awesome. Thanks so much. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button and then you can be awesome too. Thanks for watching. Little history trivia for you, and yes, this is the part where I sound like an old man telling stories. Thermarest only started making sleeping pads in the mid-1970s. I personally never used a sleeping pad of any kind until the late 80s when I bought my first Thermarest, which I still have, and it still works just fine. Check out that metal valve, isn't that cool? Since I grew up car camping, backpacking, and sleeping in a tent in the backyard all summer long, I slept directly on the ground for probably 25 years before even trying a sleeping pad. A pad does two things for us. First, it provides some level of insulation from the ground, and second, sleeping on a pad is just more comfortable than the hard ground. Both of those things are good things, but neither of which is actually necessary for survival. The only time survival is at stake is when sleeping directly on snow or ice or frozen ground. And since 90% of us do 90% of our backpacking during the summer months, a sleeping pad is not actually a necessity. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not at all advocating that anyone go without a sleeping pad. I have two reasons for stressing this point. First, just to allay any anxiety for people who are new to backpacking and might be a little concerned about what happens if I poke a hole in my mattress. The answer is nothing. You might have a somewhat chilly and uncomfortable night, but you'll be just fine. It's not a dangerous situation. Second, and more importantly, just to say that since a sleeping pad is not a necessity, that means it's a luxury, probably the heaviest luxury item in your whole kit. And I say, let's just embrace that fact. If you accept that it's a luxury, what sense does it make to carry a luxury item that isn't actually comfortable? The recovery your body achieves during sleep matters a great deal in the overall experience of hiking. And so this is one area where I personally think it's well worth splurging on weight in order to help sleep be restorative. Sleeping pads have two factors to consider, weight and comfort. And these factors tend to offset each other. The lighter the mattress is, the less comfortable, and vice versa. Also, the lighter the pad, the less insulating ability, and that is usually expressed as an R value, with most pads ranging roughly from an R3 to a 5. Now to put that in context, the insulation put in the walls of a new home is usually rated around an R15 to 19, and in ceilings it's between R30 up to a 60. Keep that in mind when people are quibbling over a mattress being 3.2 versus R3.8. There really isn't a ton of difference. So the simple answer to what is the right pad for you is just to experiment with various pads and find where those two factors meet for you. In other words, what is the lightest pad that meets your needs for comfort? You basically have three options. First, there's the closed cell foam pads like this Ridge Rest or the old blue foam pad. Closed cell foam pads are the lightest choice. A torso length Ridge Rest is just 9.6 ounces, and they're the cheapest that you can get, not to mention the fact that they're nearly indestructible. The downsides are that they take up a lot of space, and more significantly, they're like sleeping on a rock. Well, there's some minor insulating ability of an R2.8, so it's like sleeping on a slightly less cold rock. We'll call that rock plus one. Then there's self-inflating pads, which are usually the most comfortable but also the heaviest. My old Thermarest is very comfortable and it has an R value of around 3.4, but it weighs 25 ounces, and they also take up a lot of room. Now, in my efforts to lighten up, I experimented with a torso length pad. This is the extra small ProLite, 1 inch thick, which weighs just 8.5 ounces with an R value of 3.2. Warm enough, and it packs up super small, but at the end of the day of a 6-day hike, my hips were hurting so bad from the combination of 20-mile days and then sleeping on this pad at night that hiking was becoming more and more painful each day without the recovery time of sleep. And so going with a pad that's too thin can get in the way of just being able to keep going. The third option is inflatable pads like this Thermarest X-Lite. This is where weight and comfort meet for most people who are working at reducing their pack weight. This X-Lite is the long and wide, which is 77 by 25 inches. Remember, embrace the luxury. 2.5 inches deep, and it weighs 16 ounces. And it has an R value of 3.2. Not quite as durable as the self-inflating pads, but can be quite reliable with some care and site selection and clearing the ground before setting up camp. You might recall that I mentioned in the video about shelters that I got a puncture in this pad when using Polycro as a ground sheet. And so that's why I now carry a Tyvek ground cloth instead for a little more protection. If we took a poll, I believe that the X-Lite would gain the majority of votes for the best ultralight pad. However, it probably would not be more than about 30 to 40% majority because there are so many options available these days. Many people dislike the crinkly sound of this pad and opt for others that are quieter or more comfortable for them because of other factors, such as the direction of the tubes going lengthwise instead of crosswise, greater depth, R value, or whatever. Now, speaking of polls, I would really appreciate it if you would just take a moment and tell us in the comment sections below what pad you prefer, just a couple of words to name the pad, and that will begin to give an idea of the variety of tastes and options out there. And thanks for doing that. The X-Lite works great for me most of the summer. However, in shoulder season hiking, I do switch to the X-Therm, which increases the R value to 5.7 and weight to 20 ounces. When actually winter camping, I take this and a full-length ridge rest as well. That adds a little bit more insulation, but I view it as a necessity in that situation because a punctured air mattress could actually be life-threatening in winter. So the ridge rest is mostly just for security. As long as we're talking about luxury items, I'll confess that I also use a pillow. In the old days, we thought it was smart to use all your extra clothes and a stuff sack as a pillow. However, with the ultralight mindset, I'm wearing most of my clothes to sleep in, so there aren't enough left over to use as a pillow. So I got this. This is a down pillow from Goose Feet Gear, which weighs 2.5 ounces. It's got a couple of ounces of down fill, and it's made with this sleeve in back. Now, I often carry a collapsible water bag like this one for stretches between water sources. It's only 1 ounce, but I would be carrying it anyway. And that serves double duty because I can push it into this sleeve and inflate it, and then that adds some height to the pillow. Also, I've attached a small bungee string around the back side, which slides over the end of the pad and does a great job of keeping the pillow in place throughout the night. I'd like to wrap up this video with a note of caution, especially for new backpackers. When talking about sleeping pads, we tend to way overuse the word comfort, as I certainly have done here. My worry is that all this talk of comfortable sleeping pads might set the wrong expectations for what it's really like to sleep in the woods. In 50 years of camping and hiking, I think I rarely have slept completely through the night, maybe a few times here and there just out of complete exhaustion. It's just not like sleeping at home. I think of it more, for me, as a series of cat naps. and it's normal to wake up briefly every time I roll over or when I hear a strange sound go bump in the night. In many situations, anxiety occurs not because of the event itself, but because of our interpretations of the event. If I'm expecting to sleep comfortably through the night, and that doesn't happen, I might become worried or even panicky about needing to get a good night's sleep in order to be able to hike all day tomorrow. The more anxious I get, of course, the less likely I am to sleep. On the other hand, if I just accept that sleeping in the wilderness is likely to be an in and out thing throughout the night, I can relax and just go with the flow, trusting that I'll get enough sleep altogether and be fine in the morning. Truth is, some of my fondest memories have been of waking up in the middle of the night, because that gave me the opportunity to notice how magnificent the stars were, or how bright the Milky Way was when not dimmed by, the lights of civilization. Or, that wonderful feeling of rolling over, snuggling in, and knowing that I can go back to sleep and have hours more to rest. So, I hope that idea is helpful, and if you found this video useful, please hit the like button. Also, please consider subscribing, because next time we finally get to talk about ultralight backpacks. And I can't wait to do that, and you won't want to miss that one. Hey, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.